what has this stuff that you're talking about in the book of John got to do with the accounting job that I'm going to go back to tomorrow?
Yeah.
And I think if people can't see the link or see the relevance, they're like, well, what's the point in me coming to this place and being part of this community when it just seems so disconnected?
Hello, welcome back to Unscripted, where we have honest conversations about life, faith, and everything else in between. We are episode 2 of season 2. I can't believe it. It still blows my mind every time. Season 2. Anyways, guys, today we have the wonderful Joe Warton here with us, and I can't wait for us to dig deep into this conversation. Joe is such an incredible researcher. He's had decades worth of research behind him and just experience, insight and knowledge into what it looks like to be a young adult, to be a Christian. He's had amazing conversations with people like myself, like yourself, and he's collated it all into like an amazing research paper. On top of that, he's lived in South Africa, which is really, really cool. Fellow African here, always buzzing when people have lived in Africa. And what else can I tell you about Joe? He's actually just very lovely, such a well-prepared, thoughtful guest. I can't wait for you guys to get into this conversation. We are talking about, drum roll please, dramatic pause please, kind of the top 5 questions young adult Christians are wrestling with and kind of the characteristics that have made up what it looks like to be a resilient disciple of Jesus. So I'm not big into research. I'm going to put my hands up. I'm not very good at reading it, but I will say when I read Joe's report, I literally was like, this person has been reading my diary. Get out of my head. So I can't wait, Joe, for you to unpack it for us and to share with everyone what you did. Like, please go, tell us everything. If you're not into research, if you've never really thought, why would this be interesting? Convince the person watching.
Yes. So
I'm also here.
Oh, sorry, Tim is here. Tim is here. We love Tim. We work with Tim.
Tim is very much
here.
That's all I need to contribute. You go.
So I think why people should be interested in this, even people like yourself, Ennette, and I know from your diary that you're not that into research, but I think the reason why I find this really, really interesting is A, because it's looking at a really interesting topic, which is who are Christian young adults, what are they like, what are the big things that they're wrestling with, and what are they asking. So I really like that. And I think that it's really interesting because it isn't limited, as in you can do valid research using a survey, which is one way of getting data, but I really like to get close to people and to speak to them and to ask quite open questions, because obviously if you do a survey, you kind of have to have some answers in your head already. Whereas in this kind of research, what we call qualitative research, it's much more open. You're asking open questions and you're allowing young adults for themselves to say, this is what this is like for me, this is what I care about. And then they say something, you're like, oh, that's really interesting. Can you tell me more about that?
It was so good. I think I never even appreciated those distinctions in research and in collating evidence, which maybe there are some people who love research and they already know this. But for me, that was amazing to learn that from you.
I have to say, when I did my master's research as well, in my learning cohort, some of the people did quantitative and they did all the surveys and got all the numbers, and some people did qualitative, which was more interview focus group based, and everyone who did quantitative at the end wished they'd done qualitative because they were like, what do these numbers actually mean? I wish I could talk to the people. So you just cut that part out and talk to the people.
And I do occasionally do surveys, but again, they normally leave you with at least as many questions as they do answers. So
So
for
good.
qualitative research.
Yes, we are qualitative research fans on this podcast officially. What were the kind of the 2 or 3 top things that stood out to you when you did this research? Who did you do it with as well? That'd be good to know.
Okay, so I'll answer the second question first. So this was with 20 young adults they are all Christians. They would be defined as resilient disciples, so people who believe that the Bible is the word of God. They're connected to some kind of church community and they hold at least vaguely orthodox beliefs. So they're kind of like proper Christians. And I interviewed 20 of them. So most of them, we kind of spoke for around an hour, with some kind of pre-prepared questions, but then space to kind of go off script and to kind of go down whatever rabbit holes.
And they were under the age of 35?
They were between the ages of 18 and 35.
Great.
I think the mean age was 28. Remind me what the first bit of the question was. So I answered.
Top
what
3
things stood out?
top 3 things that came away from the research.
So I really, really loved these people. As in, it was just such a treat. As in, sometimes you do work and you feel like, yeah, I've earned my money here.
Yeah.
Whereas when I was having these conversations, I came away from each of the conversations so enthused, filled with so much love. I was just like, suckers are paying me to do this work because this is so life-giving to have these conversations.
Yeah.
They're such amazing people already doing so many things really, really well. So often people are quite sometimes I hear people being really optimistic about the future of the church because they say, oh, it's kind of a really easy mission field at the moment. There's so much openness. And I think there are indications that things are shifting that way. But the thing, having done this research, that gave me great hope is if this is the kind of the present and the future of the church, where you've got these really, really amazing young adults who are living out their faith, great integrity, making a great contribution where
watching
they are.
Watching
unscripted, religiously,
subscribed.
100%, yeah.
Great people.
So that was something that stood out to me, was just the quality of the character and of the people that I spoke to.
That's amazing.
What else? I think it was really interesting as well. So sometimes people can overblow the differences between generations. So people will say, I don't know, we can put people in a box, and sometimes there's more similarity between generations than we might think. But one of the things that really did stand out to me that was different about interviewing young adults rather than just the general population, and particularly those who might be a bit older, is they are deeply psychological people. So the way that they think about themselves, the way they think about life, the way they think about how has God wired me and what does it mean for me to serve God. They're very, very psychologically aware, but not in a way where they're making excuses and saying, well, I'm an introvert, so I can't speak to people. It was, this is how I recognize that God has wired me in this way.
Yeah.
And I know when I'm in this situation, it's likely to bring out the best in me.
Yeah.
And I know when I do this, it doesn't bring out the best in me. So so kind of a lot of wisdom and really knowing themselves and knowing other people and knowing their environments well, that was then enabling them to make good decisions and to live really fruitfully. So there are a couple of highlights for me.
Could you give an example on that psychological awareness one?
Yeah.
Because I did an online test that told me I was an ADHD Gryffindor, and it's not helped me in my discipleship.
Okay. I'm sorry to hear that. As in, it surprises me that hasn't helped you. That's normally the kind of thing I thought you would love. So, an example. I think one of the examples would be somebody. Oh yeah. So this was one. There was a young lady who is a self-diagnosed introvert. And she said when COVID hit, she thought she would really, really love the fact that she was just getting to work by herself in her pajamas, in her bedroom. But then she realized, actually, this isn't good for me. Like, this isn't good for my mental health. Yeah. And she realized, I do actually need to find ways to kind of connect with my colleagues and to get plugged into people and into community, because she thought, I'm an introvert, so I just need to be by myself. And she realized, no, actually,
that's so
that
interesting.
isn't good for me. It was very much kind of dose specific. So some time by herself was good, but she realized when she wasn't having any time with other people, it kind of, she felt pretty flat and then wasn't able to live in the fullness of life that God had for her. So that would be one.
Kind of one example.
And that's so in line with like the intersection of psychology and theology, and kind of, when the Bible says in Genesis, it's not good for man to be alone. And this is like just a real life, normal, everyday example of that. And just like kind of, we're wired for community. Even if you're an introvert, it's good to find ways to connect with people. So good.
On the research, why do you think that aspect stood out to you? Was it a surprise?
So I remember the moment that I had the insight. I was pouring Cheerios into a blue cereal bowl for my middle daughter, Zoe. Yeah. And I think at that stage I'd done 4 or 5 interviews, and I was like, hang on, they all use really, really psychological language. And it was one of those ones where your brain is just a magical thing in our skulls. It's just doing work while we just are pouring Cheerios. So, and then I kind of was just, I didn't then go fishing for that in the next 15 conversations. But then when I looked back over the kind of, then when I was having the interviews and then you're looking at the transcripts of the interviews, you're aware like, all of them pretty much think in this way, very aware of who they are and how to get the best out of themselves. Yeah.
So good.
And I hadn't noticed that when I'd done previous research across a wider age group.
Yeah, so good.
Yeah.
And some of the other things that came out in the research was how young adults really care about their work and wanting their work to be purposeful and to have meaning, and how they want their relationships to be fruitful and to have meaning, and how do you share your faith without losing your friends? All these like kind of different things that I definitely was wrestling with, and like I said, journaling about. And yet there's this whole cohort of other young adults who were thinking and wrestling with the same things that I was. Yeah, it was really inspiring.
Yeah, it's great to read, and it's full of examples like the one you just shared that bring all of this to life. I think that the big question for me is obviously the so what question, which you weren't trying to answer. The report doesn't go there, and it's not trying to go there, which is fine. But I'm aware of this stat in some research that Barna and World Vision put out in their Connected Generation report. They did a paper on the UK specifically as one of the countries they looked at, and they said that in the UK, young adults raised in a Christian home are 73% likely to have dropped out of church by the time they're 35. So 73% young adults raised in a Christian home would have dropped out of church by the time they're 35. And that was higher than the global average as well. So it's great at the moment that there is what we're sensing in the culture is a kind of like Gen Z quiet revival, awakening, put whatever language around that you want. Brilliant. And churches are opening their front doors for that. But my question is, how do we not see those same people coming in the front door and leaving through the back door? How do they not become part of that statistic where they have left church by the time they're 35? So some of the young adults you spoke to, they're doing well. They seem to be kind of ticking the right boxes, and yet they're all pre-35.
Yeah.
So, I guess there's some questions that they're asking that you flagged up, and how might the church and we as people who are interested in this generation and seeing them grow as whole life resilient disciples engage those questions in a way that's going to stop them becoming part of that statistic. Very long question, but I think that's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, no, I love it. I think one of the things is if we're part of a church community, particularly if we're leading a church community or a small group or whatever it might be, we need to really listen to these people who I'm speaking to or this group that I'm leading. What are they already doing? What is it like where they are? And what does this thing that I'm talking about from the Bible have to say to that? And how can we have learning spaces and conversations that really honor the person and honor their context, and that is allowing them to bring their questions and their experiences and their stories into that space. And so I think as soon as, if we have environments where the stuff that we're talking about isn't necessarily relevant to people's lives, or we're talking about something that could be relevant, but we're not helping people to see, oh, this is what it could mean for you where you are, then I think that's definitely somewhere we can lose people. I think then kind of wedded to that is the danger of passivity. So, particularly the way that we do church services not in every church, but in lots of churches, it can be quite passive. And so people learn best when they are actively engaged. And so if you're sitting through a service or a group, but you're not, I don't know, if you are not being fully absorbed in the learning process, then I think that can be a reason why people can just think like, oh, this thing, I actually really want to follow Jesus. Because, lots of these people who aren't in churches or who have left churches, they haven't left Jesus, but lots of them are asking the question like, oh, how do I actually follow him where I am? How do I make a difference where I am? What has this stuff that you're talking about in the book of John got to do with the accounting job that I'm going to go back to tomorrow?
Yeah.
And I think if people can't see the link or see the relevance, they're like, well, what's the point of me coming to this place and being part of this community when it just seems so disconnected from the life that Jesus is calling me to live? It's not like they're saying, oh, you're not entertaining me enough.
Yeah.
I think often, some of these people are like, this isn't helping me with the very thing that you're supposed to be, that we're supposed to be helping each other with.
Yeah. That desire for an integrated faith that's like, that kind of brings alive all the parts of their life, I think. Yeah. And like, this is so important because I was going to share one of the stats that we researched a little bit earlier, Tim. bear with me. So it says that the number of people reported monthly attendance has risen from 8% in 2018 to 12% in 2024. And then the most remarkable jump in people attending church has been amongst Gen Z, quadrupling from 4% to 16% of 18 to 24-year-olds coming to church.
Yeah, that's the Bible Society
That's the
research.
Bible Society research. Yeah. So if you, at this young age of 18 to 24, have all of this kind of zeal and you're in church maybe the first 4 years, 10 years, but then you find that there isn't that integration, like all that you've shared now, then the danger is that they'll become the later stat where they drop out. And so it's like, having used this research, how can we disciple people? How can we think about our lives in light of like what my peers are going through, and kind of, I guess, find a way to integrate Jesus into all of life in a way that makes sense? Yeah,
can I jump on that as well? Because I think there's implications of what you found and some other research that's out there for those in church leadership positions, and like lowercase c, lowercase l. So even if you're leading a small group, we're both leading small groups. Yeah. This is definitely relevant to us as well. Thinking about, there's a line in that Stephen McAlpine book, Being the Bad Guys, where he says, your job as a church leader, as someone who's leading other Christians, is not to prepare them for the week that you're having, it's to prepare your people for the week that they're having, that accountancy job on the Monday. How do I disciple people for that kind of context? So I think that's really right and good. And yet, what's the tension between saying, church has just got to be better and do better at engaging young adults, which is the question I asked you before, and also young adults like taking ownership for their own discipleship, because a lot of people watching this are going to be young adults, and we don't want to leave people with a sense that, it's all my church leaders' fault because they're not looking after me.
That's such a good question.
How do you think those two things fit together? And did that come out in the research?
Yeah, brilliant questions. Brilliant. So I have 3 Ps that I think are really, really important for discipleship. Like whether you are a church leader, a small group leader, or a regular Christian who doesn't have any particular responsibility, if you're looking to grow as a follower of Jesus, if you have purpose, if you have the right practices and you have the right people.
I love it. I love a pithy
then those
sentence.
3 ingredients are really, really going to help you to grow. So if you are in a church and maybe it's a church that isn't necessarily doing an incredible job of helping to, take into account the kind of life that you have and the kind of questions you might be asking, then instantly there's already 2 things that you can work on yourself. So one is the purpose, and that came out in the research a lot. Lots of these young adults are living purposefully, but they don't realize it. So when you speak to them, they're already doing loads of the stuff that you would hope a Christian in a workplace or a martial arts group or a friendship group would be doing, but they don't necessarily articulate that as purposeful activity. But when they have the conversation, they realize like, that's really, really
that's so
something
connected
that
to
I'm
kingdom.
doing.
I'm bringing something of Jesus into this when I text my friend, like, I'm thinking of you today for your interview. I'm assuming.
Yeah. So if you can, even if you're in a church that isn't necessarily helping you with that, I think there's a certain amount of learning and thinking that we can do by ourselves to work out, okay, and there's some brilliant books out there, and LICC have written some of them about how you can actually find purpose in the work that you're doing, because that's quite, so that's something that you can do by yourself anyway. And then one of the other P's is practices. So again, this came out in the research. Normally when you're speaking with young adults, you don't have to convince them that having good kind of healthy practices and rhythms is an important thing, but that doesn't mean that we're always doing those things. So for example, during COVID times, when I wasn't connected to a church community, I really missed the people, but I was able to build my practices. And again, so that's something anyone who's watching this, listening to this can do, is you can build spiritual practices into your life that are going to help you to connect with God and to grow into the kind of person that God is calling you to be during your week.
That's so true.
So those are things that you can do by yourself. The hardest P to work on, and I find this in my experience, I don't know what your guys' experience of this is the people side.
Yeah, go on.
Because we're not in control.
Yeah.
As in, like, we are people. We know that we're not even in control of ourselves a lot of the time. But when it comes to having relationships that are going to help us to grow as disciples and where we're helping other people to grow, there is so much potential in that. And in the research, when you ask these young adults, what is the thing that's helping you to grow the most at the moment? all of them say it's my friends, it's the people in my small group, it's people in my church, it's my brother-in-law, it's my wife, it's my best friend. So so the people side can be really, really impactful, but at the same time, that can be the hardest thing, because if you haven't immediately got the people around you, or maybe you have got the people but you're not relating to each other in a way where you're actually helping each other to grow.
But I think even in that, if we look at the group of people Jesus had around himself, they weren't all necessarily best friends, and they didn't all start out knowing one another. So I think there's real encouragement in just looking at the habits and the rhythms of how Jesus surrounded himself with people. It wasn't always like the cool group or the people you naturally gelled with. But so there's something that's quite inspiring, that actually, who is around me? Who are the people in my life right now? Even if it's my small group, but it's people that I don't have shared interests with, or people that I work on this team project with, but I can't always overtly talk to them about faith. There is still that sense of being, I guess, discipled and grown through those relational dynamics that you're a part of.
Yeah, I think the disciples were not the kinds of people that would normally have hung out together.
Yeah, exactly.
But because they're all following Jesus, they end up in the same community. And
it's because like I get so distracted by the amazing models of like Christian leaders around me, like John Mark Comer, incredible group of friends. They're all really intentional with one another. They're like sharing their bank accounts with each other. And I'm like, I do not have friends that I could do this with. And you get like kind of the insecurity or the sadness of like, oh, I must be missing out. I'm missing out on like real Christian community. But actually that's not true. Like Jesus was surrounded by people, and these people were not always best friends who hung out with one another, but they still grew. They still became more like him, and something beautiful happened amongst them.
And they were doing life together and the ups and downs, and sharing a lot of food, and having some crazy ministry experiences, but also, you know, just being out on boats in storms, but also in normal times, and going fishing, and all of this stuff is happening alongside itself. So I think it creates a really healthy context where you go deeper with people, because if we're only sort of doing discipleship for 2 hours on a Wednesday evening with other people, that's probably not the kind of like discipleship that Jesus was talking about. Now, not that we're all called to like, you know, give up our nets and go and have crazy ministry experiences. But I do think there is something about investing in one another outside of organized church time. As I reflect on my own experience, people that did that for me have been the people that shaped me the most in my discipleship.
Yeah, and a couple of things come to mind for that. One is the modeling. So for a lot of these young adults, they're saying the thing that's really, really important for them is just seeing other people living out their faith. You know, so people that they might only see once a week at church or every couple of months, but knowing that these people, whatever age they are going into their workplaces and their social spaces, and just, I don't know, and they're talking about their discipleship journeys there, that helps them so much. And so I think even if we're not, you know, in some church cultures, we don't always have these intentional kind of conversations, and it can feel like a really big shift. It's almost like, you know, if the water is spinning one way, it's quite hard to then go against it. So that's where we just need to say, well, when I'm having a conversation with somebody, we can think about the questions we ask, and we can think about the answers that we give. So, you know, just asking someone, you know, how was your week? And they say, oh, I was busy. You know, just going a bit deeper. Okay, what have you been working on? What's been challenging about that? You know, how, so you know, is there anything that you're doing to try and like manage that? Or you know, you said you're stressed, you know, how's that showing itself? You know, just instantly you're asking a question that is showing this person, I care about you and I want to go a bit deeper. And that's where good conversations come from. But then likewise, if someone asks you, how was your week? You can just say, oh yeah, it was busy. Or you can actually say like, oh yeah, God really helped me with this thing this week, or I'm having this challenge in my work or in my parenting, and here's a question that I'm grappling with. And instantly then you're having a conversation where you're learning from each other, and you're sharing your stories, you're getting to know each other, and it becomes a discipleship conversation, not just passing time until you jump back in your car and go home.
So true.
And favorite thing that we do in our small group is have a little check-in time. So normally we try and eat together, or the people that can make it early enough to eat together, have some food, and then after that, before we get into the Bible study, we will pass around a little talking stick, which is normally just like a little stress ball or squishy egg, or I don't know, whatever inanimate object is nearest. And when you are holding the talking stick, you just get to check in and talk about what you're bringing into this evening, like what's been going on with you over the past week, over the past day, whether things are fine and kind of normal and you're just ticking along, or whether there's heavier stuff that you might be carrying and everything in between. And I have to say, giving that the time it needs, which is as long as it needs, so we never interrupt anyone, has been amazing.
Wow.
It just makes that segue between the sort of dinner small talk chat, how are you? Yeah, fine, busy week, yeah, me too, into here's what's actually going on with me, here's my real life, because I know I'm not going to be interrupted. I know people are listening to me and care about me. It's just over a couple of years taken the relationships in that group to a place that I didn't think was actually possible in a small group. Just the power of checking in together, listening to what's going on in each other's lives has been huge. So I would recommend that as a little hack to apply.
Nice.
Another little life hack, a discipleship hack.
Hey, just a quick pause. Please, would you like, subscribe, comment on however you are listening, streaming, or watching this episode? It just makes such a huge difference. It allows us to carry on producing this content for you for free, which we absolutely love. So please, however you do it, engage with us. We love having honest, vulnerable conversations about God, life, and everything else in between. I will see you on the other side of the video. Tune back in. Bye. My discipleship hack was just to give the people the gift of the thing that you want. So if you're in I think my student youth group leader shared this as like to the leaders that were around, and she was like, if you're starting a time of prayer and you're like, guys, we're going to pray for X, rather than just leaving it in that awkward silence for like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, just give them the blessing of being the person that goes first, and just like, you pray, and then it will immediately break the awkwardness. Someone else will pray. But that small piece of advice is translated to so many other things. Like if I want to have a deeper conversation, I'm going to answer the question I've been asked a bit more deeply. If I'm looking for someone to think of me and make me a cup of tea and offer something to me, then I'm going to look for who can I do that to, and kind of taking the need and the apparent sense of lack and making it a bit more active and giving. So
is there something here about authenticity being a key value? I don't know if that came out explicitly in the research, but I've heard that word used, and I've probably used it myself, to describe young adults that want to be authentic in an age of social media where everything is curated.
Yeah, that's true.
We actually more deeply want
to stay human in human
relationships. Does that resonate? Would you use that
100%,
language?
100%, yeah. And then the other word that you've just used there as well, I would add to the authenticity, I guess it overlaps very much, is being human. So we all are humans and we thrive best when we act like humans and when we treat other people like humans. So, in the two examples that you've both shared there, what I'm hearing is a real humanness. And again, that came through in the research, where one of the things that people really, really loved was the fact that they were having a conversation where somebody was taking an interest in the stuff of their lives and who they are. They really, really appreciated that. But when they were then talking about struggles that they have, particularly in the workplace, is not all of them, but quite a lot of them talked about the dehumanizing impact of workplaces that aren't designed for humans, that don't recognize and honor people's humanity and work with the grain of their humanity. So it's kind of quite simple, but yet so often it isn't happening, which is just to recognize we're humans, let's live as humans, let's treat each other as humans. And absolutely, that authenticity, that reality, that honesty piece within that, very much connects in.
I remember there was a little illustration in the research of someone who was on a Teams call with hundreds of other people, just wondering, why am I here? What contribution have I got to make here? And just feeling like they weren't part of a human system. They were part of some sort of, factory, human factory, which is not the kind of place you're going to thrive. So I mean, maybe there's things to say to that person specifically, but also I just think it underlines how important it is that church and our discipling relationships are places where we get rehumanized before we
I like that. Get rehumanized.
Into a Teams call with a few hundred people. Would that be fair?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I really love that. It was quite sad hearing some of the stories. So another one, a young lady who works in a call center for a really big, multinational organization. And again, just the systems that are in place, she just found it so dehumanizing, isn't able to make decisions. It's very much computer says this, now do this, now do that. So I think, recognizing that lots of people have workplaces like that. We want to try and change those workplaces and think about how can we make them more human, whether we are the employee or whether we are one of the owners or the managers. But to have that as a live question, I think is really, really helpful.
Yeah.
But then, as you say, if our church communities, our small groups are places where we can rehumanize each other, where we can share what is really going on, talk about what we've been experiencing, what we've been feeling, just honoring each other. I think those can be places where we kind of come back to life when if we're in an environment that's doing the opposite.
So good. And so much of the research has been subtly shaping season 2. So if you're watching and you're like, I do want to learn about how can I be more human in my workplace or find more purpose, stay tuned. The season is just beginning. So
can I ask on the practices piece, again, I've already revealed I love a discipleship hack. What kind of practices did you see working for people? If there was one practice that you'd recommend
Tim,
I go away and try that will be guaranteed to accelerate my discipleship tenfold, what is that practice?
Okay, I'm going to allow myself two.
Okay.
Because one of them actually comes from your master's research that you did, Tim, which I read.
Forgot about that.
So,
Great
so something
points,
that
I've got research as well.
we read each other's research. We're totally hugging this out.
Inundated with research this episode. Go on.
So one of the things that I know that you found was when you gave. Why don't you tell the story? Because it was your research. So,
which bit are you referring to?
This was the one where where they prayed for a few minutes before they started.
Oh,
work.
yeah.
Why don't you tell us more about that? Yeah.
So, yes, this guy was a doctor. And I think I flippantly made a joke in the focus group that I was running that this guy was a part of, that doctors, they're like clearly just walking around living out God's purposes in their work every day, no worries. And he said, that's absolutely not true. If you're a doctor in a hospital, it's busy, you're stressed, you've got a to-do list, you've got calls to answer. It's actually quite hard to slow down long enough to become conscious of God with you in that place. So yes, he started a practice of moving where he did his sort of Bible time and prayer in the morning. So rather than doing it at home before he left for work, he got to work the equivalent amount of time earlier. So it was only like 3 to 5 minutes earlier. And he made sure that he could find a space in his hospital workplace, either at the desk he had or just in a quiet corner in the staff room, to do his Bible reading and prayer for the day, have a little mindful moment at the hospital. And he said that totally changed his vision for the kind of things that he was praying for, the ways that he was going to be aware of God through that day.
So good.
And he said actually, one of the things he was praying was that in his surgeries that he would go into, that he would just be more careful and patient with patients rather than being in a rush. And he genuinely saw that started to happen. God started to answer those prayers. He started to integrate some of the things that normally might just sit in your devotional plan.
But never actually happen in person. This is such a John O'Donoghue thing, to bless the space like where you are, and how you bring the presence of God to the place you are, bless the space that you're in.
Exactly.
But this is such a practical way of outworking like a theologically heady
concept. That was it. So that was both a practice and a bit of the purpose thing as well, because suddenly he saw what he was doing was infused with godly purpose, and God was with him in that. So quiet time at the office.
Amazing. Okay, so my one would then very much kind of build on that, which is if you can't do your kind of your quiet time, your devotional time in or near the place where you do your work or wherever that space could be, then I think so when I think about reading the Bible, I think about kind of 3 stages: head, heart, hands. Am I trying to understand what this passage is saying? Is it connecting with me at some kind of deep emotional level? But then hands, like, what am I going to do with this? And I think some of us are more naturally lean towards the head, some of us more naturally lean towards the heart, some of us might be a good mix of those. But from the conversations, I have lots of these conversations with people about their practices, the one where most of us fall down is on the hands. Okay, what am I now going to do with this? So one of the really good ways to do, as you've said, Tim, is if you can do that in the space where you're working, then you're maybe more naturally going to make those connections. But if you can't do it in your space, then ask yourself the question before you allow yourself to shut your Bible and to get on with your day. Ask yourself, like, kind of what kind of day am I about to have? Who am I going to be with? Where am I going to go? What am I going to be doing? how is this truth that I've just read, like, what do I want to carry with me into that place? So is there is there a truth that I want to hold on to? Is there a virtue that I really want to embody today? Is there an opportunity that I want to be open to? Is there an aspect of God I want to be mindful of? To make sure we're doing that connection thing and not just thinking, okay, brilliant, I've learned an interesting thing, I felt something nice, I can now tick that box and say, that's done.
Yeah.
I'm saying, okay, so what? Like, how am I going to connect this? Yeah. And even now, I have to force myself to do that. Like, often I feel like, yes, I've done the thing, I've learned something, I feel good, I'm ready to go.
And then like, so
and
what?
I just feel like God's just saying, like, just sit down for a minute, just think about what is this going to mean.
Yeah.
So,
we've tried to apply that in our small group, the head, heart, hands thing. And in trying to apply it, I've noticed that it's really easy to spend 2/3 of the time on head. What does it mean? And with the intellectual wrestling with it. And so in introducing the head, heart, hands framework more explicitly and deliberately, what I've tried to do and my fellow leaders have tried to do is give equal amount of time to head, heart, hands, which is hard.
It's hard. It's a bit more vulnerable, isn't it? Because you're kind of sharing the deeper things going on for you.
But when you combine that with the check-in exercise that I talked about earlier, by the time you get to hands, suddenly this is getting really real for people. So I can tell you one example when we were looking at Ephesians 5, instructions to Christians' households, and there's a bit about slaves and masters. And one of the young ladies in our group was talking about how she had to give an annual review the next day to an employee at their company who was actually kind of senior in age and experience to her, but just in the organizational hierarchy was she was the senior giving the annual review. And so although it was a passage in Ephesians about slaves and masters, there were principles there about power dynamics in a workplace. And so we were getting into, okay, what does this actually look like for you?
So good.
In terms of the hands application of this passage, rather than going, oh, wasn't it interesting how Paul subverted Roman cultural norms in the household?
How can you subvert cultural norms in your workplace?
Exactly. So anyway, just an illustration.
Oh, so good.
Amazing.
Is there anything burning, guys, that you're like, people must know this about either the research or anything that we've been talking about today?
I've got a thing.
Okay.
Were you going to say something?
No, my cogs are still spinning, so you go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think one overarching application for both those who are influencing and leading young adults and young adults themselves in terms of discipleship is to ruthlessly eliminate the sacred secular divide from your life.
Yeah.
So that belief that there are some parts of life that matter to God more than others, or some parts of life where God shows up more than others.
Okay.
And filling up my week with those things, or giving my time and money and energy to those things, is more valid somehow in God's economy than doing my accountancy job on a Monday. Absolutely not true. Colossians 1. All things have been created through and for Jesus, and through Jesus' blood shed on the cross, all things are being reconciled back to God. So that means your yoga practice, it means your cold water swimming, it means your accountancy job, it means your video gaming, it means anything and everything that you're doing. Your work, when you're on that Teams call with 100 other people, what does it look like to be in that place as an agent of God's reconciliation? Huge question, but those are the questions that come when we become conscious of the sacred secular divide and trying to get rid of it, because otherwise it will just keep creeping back in. So that would be a big thing, I think. And obviously people can read more about that on the LICC website.
Definitely.
There you go. Wow. There you go. That's my big takeaway.
Yeah, I'm glad you went there. That was awesome. I think my big takeaway, both from this research and also, so I'm doing some work at the moment with a particular church, and it's based around whole life discipleship and engaging with practices. And one of the things that I'm noticing there that I also noticed in this research and in lots of places as well, is just how important it is to have conversations. So I think whether so if you're a church leader, for example, we're often thinking about how can I maximize my time, and having a one-to-one conversation with somebody can feel like this isn't the best use of my time, because when I preach, I might be speaking to 30 or 100 people or 200 people in one go. Whereas if I sit down and have a conversation with somebody, particularly if I've traveled to their workplace or their home, that could be, a third of your day gone. so much of where the magic happens, where people grow as disciples, where they realize how God is already at work through them and in their places, and how they can maybe become even more fruitful. So much of that comes to the surface when people have one-to-one conversations, and it's really not clever. But so much happens when people have those types of conversations. So I think if we can, as whether we're church leaders or just ordinary people trying to follow Jesus, if we have those intentional one-to-one conversations where we're talking about, and also in small groups as well, where we're talking about, this is what's going on, this is where I'm seeing God, these are the questions I have, this is the challenge I have, these are the people that I would love to see come to faith, here's the stuff I'm working on. You know, just so much happens, and people grow in this really rapid and magical way when they start talking. So yeah, that would be my kind of big thing, is have conversations.
I would like to lobby for an unscripted episode on spirituality of conversation.
Oh my gosh, season 3. Let's do it, guys. Okay, engage. Great. But this is such a great place to end, because it's all about conversations. Go and have an honest conversation about God, life, culture, everything else in between. And please write in the comments below. Let us know your thoughts on the research. Are you interested to read it? We'll leave the information in the info box for you to go and check out all the things that Joe did. And also, it's actually like a beautiful piece of research. Like the images, the way it's laid out, it's really engaging, and it will honestly be such a great thing for you to do in the afternoon. So do it, check out the research, like, subscribe, all of the things on all of the platform, however you engage. Thank you so much for tuning in. And if you ever wanted to get in touch with Joe, if you are interested in research or having some research done for your organization or your church, we'll also leave his info in the bio. Phew, that's everything.
Joe, do you research anything?
Do I research anything? I do research something.
Anything.
No, that came out wrong.
Chat about, look at my dogs.
If I wanted research on
give me a report on my dogs.
The efficacy of investing in bonsai trees for church growth, would
so there's actually a 12% growth.
Really?
No, I'm joking.
That was so good. I really believed you.
I am a researcher, and there is an extent to which, I will research stuff that people want me to know. However, I love being able to look at what people are doing in their everyday lives and how they're connecting their faith with what they do. So if you're an organization that at least has an element of that in what you're doing, then I'd love to have a conversation.
There we go. It's happened.
The Frontline Lives of 18 to 35s, available in all good bookstores.
In all good LICC websites.
This is the longest goodbye to an episode ever. Thank you for tuning in, guys. We'll see you for the next episode. Bye.